Thank you, Dave, for that special item this evening. I would now like to invite Dr. Kay Kuzma to please join me up front. Sure.
Oh, that was extra special, you know. You just wait for that age when two handsome guys get up to really help you. You see, anyway, I've just written a book called Gold for My Girlfriends, and I've been thinking about my past and family, and I would like to say that family is more sometimes than just a husband and wife and children and grandparents. Sometimes it's your church family, your friend family that can put you on their shoulders and give you that oomph to move forward, especially when you've lost a family member. My husband died last year, and it was like I had no motivation to do anything, nothing. And I kind of thought back and said, you know, my husband was a real encourager. I would not be doing this if it weren't for him. When we first met, he was finishing his doctorate at University of Michigan, and I had one goal: get out of college quick and get married. And but I knew that wasn't going to happen till we got better acquainted. We were basically dating or writing letters to each other clear across the country. So he encouraged me to go ahead and get my master's degree. I couldn't believe I was, even thinking about this. I was just glad to get through college. And he encouraged me. I was interested enough in this guy to be 70 miles away at Michigan State while he was going to University of Michigan. My mom thought that was a safe distance away because I was dating this Polish guy that she didn't know. And but anyway, it all worked out. I got my master's degree, and then when I began to teach at UCLA, I knew then I wanted to be a teacher and applied to Sacramento for a teaching credential. They denied me a teaching credential because the children that I was teaching were not all kindergarten age and above. And I got so frustrated. I said to my husband, honey, I can't believe Sacramento would do this to me. I am such a good teacher. And he said, sweetheart, don't yell at me. Just why don't you go ahead and go up to see the education department at UCLA and see if you could get your doctorate. I said, there's no way I could get a doctorate. No way. But again, together, families can do more than you can do alone. There's that oomph, there's that encouragement. And I went up there, found out I'd already completed half the coursework and headed through a doctoral program. You probably think I was a born speaker, but I was not a born speaker. I was so scared when I started speaking that I wrote down every single word I was going to say. I was so sure that I wanted to do it correctly, I even wrote the commas where I was going to take a breath. I did a couple sermons around, and it was okay because I read them, every single word. And then I went to this church with my family. Now I had 3 little kids, and they came out quickly and they said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here for Sabbath school. We don't have any program for Sabbath school. Would you also speak for Sabbath school?" And I opened my mouth to say, "No, I don't have anything else to say." And my husband said, "Well, of course you will do it. That's not a problem at all." And I literally panicked, folks. I panicked. What was I going to say? My husband prayed with me and said, "You'll do fine, Kay. Just do what comes." And I got up with only thinking about, well, it was basically, were any of you here last Sabbath to hear the sermon that I did? It was basically that sermon. I had been talking to my School of Public Health students about those 5 characteristics of love, and I said, okay, I think I can do that, and I'll think of a story to tell for each one of those things. And I got up, I literally lost all the feeling in my legs, my hands and my arms went to sleep. They just tingled, and I was so scared. I couldn't believe it. But I prayed, "Holy Spirit, you take over, because I have no idea what I'm going to say." And folks, when I finished that 20 minutes, I looked back and thought, wow, that was good. Obviously, it wasn't me. But if God can do that with the encouragement of others in the family or in the church family, being on their shoulders and finding you can do something more than you thought you could possibly do, I said, I will never again prepare everything word for word. I'm just going to pray and let the Holy Spirit do it. I mean, it was obviously much better than what I would have written down, and that began my speaking career. And then you say, okay, listen, I know you must have been a born writer, having written 35 books or something like that, but I wasn't. In fact, when my first book came out, my English teacher in college said, Kay, I'm surprised. I am so surprised you wrote a book. I can't think of anyone in my classes that I would least expect to someday write a book. Well, I was surprised too. But you see, what happened is right before I wrote that book, article came out in the church paper about how hard you need to spank your children and how many times you need to spank them and when you need to spank them, and I blew up. I said to my husband, what are they thinking of? What about all of Ellen White's comments about if you can first just divert their attention and get them onto something else, that's so much better when you can't reason with them. And what about encouraging them, and what about love, and what about... And Jan said, sweetheart, don't yell at me. If you feel so strongly about this, write an article in rebuttal. Oh, I was so frustrated. I sat down. I think it was Sabbath afternoon. Now, I don't know if you're supposed to write articles on Sabbath afternoon or not, but I sat down and I put everything into it. And those were typewriter days, folks. That's how long ago it was. And then I finished my marvelous article, giving all my ideas, and I handed it to my husband, and he started editing it. And he edited it, and he edited it, gave it back to me. I rewrote, then I gave it to my husband again, and I edited it some more. And finally, he said, okay, send it in. When I got word back that they had accepted that article, I can still remember the date that it came out. I mean, I was amazed. I couldn't believe this had happened. It was like June 17th, 1972, I believe. And it was very close to that date, and I couldn't believe I had done this, but I did it on the shoulders of someone else. So what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight is basically the 10 traits of strong, healthy families. It's basically the answer to how to have a family where each individual person is stronger because they're a part of that family, just as the song said. So I'm going to start out with how I got to this place, because when I started teaching at UCLA, I was curious about why families were strong, did a research study, took all the answers from various different research studies about strong, healthy families, put them together, rank ordered them, and came up with this list. And the interesting things, folks, just before I came, I was once again looking at the literature, and I saw this article about how to have a strong family, or how to have a happy family, how to have a successful family. And the seven first things that I had written down years ago from studies in all different kinds of cultures are the same things I'm going to be telling you from that study that was just recently done. So I have quite good confidence that you'll get something, maybe lots, out of what you hear tonight. Anyway, so let's start at the beginning. The first characteristic of a strong, healthy family is commitment. You can get through anything with commitment. You have dreams when you first get married, and you never know what's going to happen. I had no idea that my brilliant husband, who taught medical students biostatistics and did all these research studies and was the first, he and his buddy were the two people who started the Adventist Health Study. Have you heard of the Adventist Health Study? About all the positive things that comes from that blue zone called Loma Linda, and well, actually all over the world with Adventists, because they had people from all over. But that healthy, amazing man would have a brainstem stroke at 59 years of age. Totally incapacitated. I pushed him around in a wheelchair for over 20 years. He's been to more women's retreats than any other man, I think, in history, because I committed to, when he had that stroke, I committed to take him every place I went. We've been to Australia twice after that stroke, and I lost him last year. But commitment can get you through amazing situations. Two people who are committed to go the distance in terms of marriage will not break up. Now, you can't do it alone, because there's such things as mental illness, abuse, and some of those things that come in a relationship. And so it takes two to commit to each other, and that's what makes all the difference. I brought a little object lesson along. It's a jar that I have filled with 2 golf balls. I used to carry a larger jar along, but I got down to the smallest possible jar I could find. And so now we have 2 golf balls in this jar and a whole lot of rice. But you know, folks, there's only one way to put everything you want in life into your jar of life. You got to put the big things in first. If you don't put the golf balls in first, you'll never get all the rice in. If you put the rice in first, you'll never, let's see, did I say this right? Well, anyway, if you put the golf balls in first, you'll get everything else in life in that God wants you to get into your life. But if you put the rice in first, which we do, got to answer this telephone call, got to run to this appointment, need to stop by the shopping center, everything else that life will throw at you first, and not your family in first, you'll never get all the little things in. So that's my object lesson for tonight. Okay, commitment is important. I'm not going to linger there other than saying, I would say, commit yourself to each other, husband and wife, again, every morning. Sweetheart, I love you. I'm going to always forever love you. I'll never leave you. That kind of commitment, it's amazing what it does for a family. When your children hear you having a little tiff, be sure they hear you make up, and be sure they hear you say, hey, listen, kids, Mommy and Daddy may not agree on everything in life, and sometimes we get a little emotional about it, but you know what? I will never leave your mom. Ever, ever, ever leave your mom. Same thing, wife to the husband, because kids know that they probably are in school with half of their school population having had to deal with divorce and the rejection that comes with divorce. And they're scared to pieces when they hear mom and dad being not very pleasant to each other. In fact, we had this experience. Another book was coming out called Primetime Parenting, and I wanted to have a nice cover for that book. So I called the photographer and arranged to have a picture taken of our family out on a lake next to Riverside, California. Well, it was about 35 minutes away from Loma Linda to actually get to that park. But all I told my husband was, honey, I'm going to be there at noon. I've made arrangements for a picture to be taken. And is that a good time? He said, yes, it's a perfect time. I didn't tell him we were going to go 30-some minutes over to Riverside. So when he got in the car, and of course I was at least 40 minutes late getting there for lunch hour, he said as he got in the car, honey, we're going to have to hurry because I have a 1 o'clock. I said, there's no way that you can't have a 1 o'clock. I have this all set up with a photographer, and we're going to go out to the lake. He said, well, honey, just call the photographer. I'll stop at the next phone booth. Those were days before cell phones. And he said, let's call the photographer and just tell him to meet us here in Loma Linda. I said, I can't. He won't have a phone out there. He's already at the lake. How could you have done this? Well, sweetheart, you didn't tell me. And this conversation was going on with the 3 kids sitting in the car. And at just a little bit of a lull, my daughter in the back said, Mom, Dad, I never want to hear that kind of conversation again. I put us in our places, but again, that's how important it is for kids to know that you are absolutely committed to each other. But the number 2 thing that is important for strong, healthy families is to have, to give plenty of encouragement, to give affirmation, to let others know that they're appreciated. Those 3 things are so important to a strong, healthy family. A research study was done up in Northern California about couples that break up or don't versus the number of arguments they have. And the study found out that it wasn't the number of arguments that you have that breaks you up. It's the ratio of positive things you say to each other versus the negative things. And if you could keep it 5 positives to 1 negative, you could make it. And I got to thinking about that, and I said, wow, 5 to 1. Why would we ever just walk the tightrope 5 to 1? Let's broaden the plank. Let's make it 10 to 1. and not be worried about whether we've given enough encouragement or affirmation or positive things to our mate or to our children. So I like to say, even when children are misbehaving, again, 10 to 1, if you say one negative thing to them, be sure to follow up with plenty of positive things that you can say to them. Oh, yeah, this is interesting. A new study that has been done by Gary Rosberg said that the number one thing that husbands and wives need from each other are words of encouragement and affirmation and appreciation. So, anyway, just take that for what it's worth. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about self-worth, and this will also be an important part of that because we happen to see each other and feel about the worth of ourselves in the mirror of others. And if they smile at us, if they say kind words to us, wow, we see ourselves as something important. So it has more to do than just feeling good about yourself. It's your whole way of identifying who you are and how valuable you really are. The third thing that is important for strong, healthy families is spending time together. And again, the little jar, if you put the little things in first, you'll never have time for the big things. I say families should never be at a place in their lives when they're not planning time together. What are we going to do tomorrow that's special? What are we going to do next weekend that is special? My kids loved it when Jan would come home and announce to the family, "Kids, you won't believe what I think we should do next Christmas vacation. And I think we should go to the Virgin Islands or some exotic place like that." Spending time together is really important. Now we say, what about working moms? They don't have very much time to spend with their families. Studies have shown that mothers who work often plan more things to do with their children than mothers who are home full-time with their children. It's not that it's for every family like that, but you've got to have the playtimes. I'm looking at Rachel. I was just over at their house this week and found that, not your house, but a friend's house, but went to the park together and just found that, this group of homeschooling moms are constantly planning things for their kids to do, things to look forward to. Time together is absolutely essential. So plan time together. There are 3 times together that you absolutely should be there for your kids. Number 1 is performance time. I don't care what it is, whether it's your kid playing rugby or what he's playing, but if that kid is on the ball field, or if that kid is in the chorus, or if that kid is in some kind of school play, even if he only says one word in the school play, be there. You may not be able to see your kid in a chorus of 100 kids up front, but let me tell you, your kid will find you in an audience of 3,000. That is extremely important time to be there. And so many dads have often said to me, wow, if I'd have only taken the time to be there for performance times. And one dad even said to me, I can't believe it. I got so busy, I didn't even get to my son's graduation. So don't miss those special times. Rearrange your schedule. Performance times are absolutely essential for your children. But there's more time. There's bedtime. and you're saying, oh my goodness, I'm here, it's bedtime, and the kids, I'm not with them. Yeah, bedtime is extremely important. Even if you can't be there, you can give them a message on your wife's smartphone to read to the kids that Daddy just sent them or Mom just sent them. Tell them a story, record it, and have them play that story to hear for the night that you can't be there. One dad that I know had 6 children. He arranged bedtime for every 30 minutes for those 6 children, so he could spend 30 minutes of time alone with every single one of those kids every night he was home. Now, he wasn't home all the time because he was a motivational speaker and out on the road, but when he was home, and those kids absolutely knew it. So bedtime is a critical time to be there. And then celebration time, like birthdays, are so important. And I think you, as a family, should come up with celebrations. Celebrate little things for your kids. Don't just wait for the big things. We always tried to do that with our family. Kim and Kari did well in school, that we could celebrate anything with them. Kevin was another story. We had to look hard to find things to celebrate for Kevin. And we began to notice when we put a new swimming pool in the backyard that Kevin was spending, because he wanted to go surfing, he loved snorkeling, that kind of thing. He was trying to swim underwater all the way from one side of the swimming pool to the other side. And he would come in and said, I almost made it, Mom, I almost made it. Well, the day he came in and said, I swam the whole length of the swimming pool underwater, we said, let's celebrate. Now, nobody else in their right minds had probably ever celebrated a kid swimming underwater for the length of the swimming pool. But those kinds of things are fun and memorable. Take a picture. Remember when we celebrated this. Remember when we celebrated that. And that becomes fun time together. Tomorrow, now I'm going to tease you a little bit, but tomorrow afternoon, the first session of tomorrow afternoon, that's right at 2 o'clock, right after you stay for potluck and enjoy that, then we are going to have a session called The Precious Present. And I will be giving you a 15-point piece of time, like how do you make your time really, really valuable. But I'm just teasing you because I don't want to give it away right now. But yes, commit yourself to giving time to your family, because children spell love, T-I-M-E. Oh, yeah, and this is interesting too. My husband grew up in a Polish-German family in Europe. I don't know if you have had European moms, especially European dads. They can be rather stern and lay down the law. And when Jan did not study, the teachers could be really stern. So there he was. They had just escaped from Poland. They were in a displaced persons camp in Germany at Eckernförde, and Jan had not studied. So in his lederhosen, they made him, with bare knees, kneel down on little pebbles and put his hands, they're very stern, put his hands above his head in a circle on the blackboard that they had made. And many times they were, Jan was swatted. Well, his older sister was in the same grade as Jan, the same room as Jan, and she would immediately go home and tell his dad, because she was embarrassed that her brother didn't study and didn't get good grades. He was always out on the soccer field. And he would get another spanking from his dad. And we asked him one time, because the children, his sisters, told us these stories about him getting all this punishment from the teachers and then from his dad. And we said, didn't you feel resentful toward your dad? And he said, I don't even remember those spankings. He said, I guess I just knew I was the favorite son in the family, and I just figured I was loved the most, and it never dawned on me that I was being punished harshly. And that's what love does. That's what time spent together. If you do make a mistake and you're spending lots of time with your kids, loving time, fun, pleasant time, it overcomes some of those mistakes. I'm not saying it'll overcome all of them, but it overcomes a lot. And even people that have gotten harsh spankings from their folks, they tend not even to think about that. And then they say, yeah, that's how you need to treat your children. But the problem today is we're not with our children enough to have that span of time to overcome the negative. So we're trying very hard not to put the negative in there in the beginning. So time together is important. Okay, let's see where we're going next. Communication. I think you need to spend at least 15 minutes talking to each kid personally, if not 30 minutes a day. And then make sure that you're not just giving cliches. I mean, many times when we're talking together, you know how to do it. I say, hi, and you say, how are you? Good, good. How did today go? Good, good. Did you learn anything new? Did I learn anything new from you? No, we were just talking cliches. I was asking questions that were just cliches. It really wasn't meaningful to me what you came up with, and it wasn't your answers. My comments weren't meaningful to you. Asking your children, what did you do today in school? Chances are they will say, nothing. Nothing. So you have to know how to get out of just saying cliches with your family and ask them personally, did you have your art class today? Yes. Oh, what did you draw today, or what did you do today in art? So you come up with something specifically. So you're not just talking about cliches, but you're sharing information. And if we can just get to that level, it is so much more important. But it's not just reporting information that is important, but go up one more level in terms of meaningfulness and talk about your ideas, your opinions. Now you are stepping out into dangerous areas because your ideas and your opinions may be different from the rest of the family. Oh, let me tell you guys, in the U.S., we had a hard time when Trump first started running for president. Should we talk about Trump? No, it's safer to talk about Ben Carson. I don't know if you know, Ben Carson is the Adventist physician who is also running for president. But it's like, if you gave your opinion, if you gave your idea on something, bang, you probably got hit back with somebody else's opinion. But let me tell you, conversations when you're on your opinion and idea level are so much more exciting, fun, you learn more about each other, you're taking positions, and as husbands, you're so excited that your wife has read something, reported something that she has read, and formed an opinion about it, because that makes conversation so much more meaningful. It may be a little bit more dangerous, but you learn to say, oh, really? Wow. In fact, you don't even have to speak English. Just, oh, And it's amazing how much you can get out of the other person if you're willing to just listen. And then it brings us to the next level, and this is a tough level, to actually talk about emotions, how you feel about what you hear or what's happening in the family, how you feel about what somebody said about you. And I always ask wives, what do you want your husbands to tell you when you really don't, when you really feel badly, when life has not gone well that day? And chances are you will say, I don't want them to give information, because that is a real temptation for men. If I just can give my wife enough information, that will solve her emotional problems. No, that does not solve your emotional problems. A hug, a kiss, just holding, just listening, ooh, rather than committing anything, is what helps a person continue to share those emotions. And it's amazing. Once you share your emotions, then the emotion goes down. So we learn to say things like, wow, I can tell you feel so disappointed. I can tell by your face that really hurt. And I just want you to know that I'm here. So we give the you feel lead-ons to get more, for a person to share more, because the more they talk about their emotion, the more it will tend to go down. Then, if you feel differently about something, for example, let's say the bathroom. Your daughter always leaves out the curling iron, the toothpaste, the toothbrush, the towel is always wet and on the floor, and you go in after she leaves for school, and you're constantly finding this bathroom is a mess. You're feeling like you should say something about the messy bathroom. And what comes out of your mouth without thinking is, why are you always leaving the bathroom in a mess? Anytime you give that kind of statement where it's accusing the person of something, you left the bathroom in a mess, you're taking a chance that their emotions will go up. If you make the mistake and say a you message, you have done this, you are responsible, you must turn around immediately and listen. I realize by the look on your face, you feel unhappy that I brought up the subject. You feel, well, that's not a good feeling, because I said the word that. You should have caught me on that. Okay, anytime you say you feel that, it's an information statement. It's not an emotional feeling statement. So you feel angry because I have mentioned it. And then you listen them down, and then you say, but the bathroom is still dirty. And when you do this back and forth, it's amazing that you will eventually, within 2 or 3 minutes, probably come to, okay, we got to solve this problem. We've both got feelings about it. You don't want me to tell you about it. I don't want to have to tell you about it. And but the bathroom needs to be cleaned. How are we going to solve the problem? But you cannot solve a problem with too much emotion. You have to listen down the emotion first, and that's the way good communication happens. So learning these communication skills are really, really important. Did I talk to you about transactional analysis at all? Okay, here we go. Do you know what transactional analysis is? Anybody in psychology? This has been around a long time, but it's basically the idea that we are 3 people inside of us. We have a parent personality who's the bossy personality. You should have picked that up. You know, it was, why did you say that? That was, of course somebody was going to get angry at you by saying that. That's the parent personality, the bossy personality. That's the personality who puts you down, that makes you feel incompetent, that makes you feel like a nobody. Then there is the adult personality. That's the personality that can talk to another adult and say, wow, you know, things didn't go very well for me today. How did they go for you? Oh, things didn't go very well for me either. But it's adult to adult. You're not putting each other down, or you're not being bossy. The third personality is the child personality. And we've all got this inside of us too. That's the impulsive personality that says, don't talk to me like that. I hate it when you say things like that. You're just jealous. And that would be an impulsive child personality. Now, we've all 3 got these inside of us. If an adult personality talks to another adult personality, even though it's 30-year-old dad to 7-year-old kid, adult to adult, you're going to do fine in your communication. But let's say this kid is now 16 years of age and has totally blown curfew. He should have been home by 10:30. It's now midnight. You have stayed awake waiting for this kid to come home. He didn't call. He didn't let you know what had happened. He is just plain late. By the time this kid comes in through the door, you are in your parent personality. Where have you been? How come you didn't call? What's wrong with you? I can't believe you would do this to me. I have been standing here waiting for you since 10:30. How could you treat your mother like this? Okay? That's your adult person, or that's your parent personality. Now, he knows that he has a good excuse. He knows that his cell phone died. He knows that the gas ran out of the tank and they couldn't get anybody to push the car to the station or whatever. So he has a good excuse. But let me tell you, if this kid interrupts mom in her parent personality, she will really not even hear his excuse. And she will say, I don't care if that happened. You should have called me. And she doesn't even hear that they didn't have a cell phone. So if you train your children to get you down from your parent into your adult or your child, if you're acting like a child and impulsively saying things, if they can learn to get you up to the adult, then you can have a good conversation. It all depends upon the kid if he doesn't respond to your parent or to your child. If he responds to your parent, you can almost bet, you can practice this at home, you can almost bet he will react in his child personality. So mom says, where have you been? I can't believe you would do this to me. He says, who cares? You don't love me anyway. just an impulsive reaction. Seldom is it parent to parent. It can be, but most of the time it's the opposite. So if mom reacts in her child personality, I've just had it with you, I can't stand it any longer the way you treat me, then the child will probably say something in his parent, Mom, that is no way to behave. Do you think you're going to solve the problem acting like that? So, here's how you train your children to get you into your adult as quickly as possible. And this works with 2 adults too, by the way, who are in their parent or child. You immediately have to throw 3 warm fuzzies. Do you know what warm fuzzies are? There's the positive things you give each other. The words of love, the words of appreciation, the words of encouragement. And if this kid, when mom says, I can't believe you're so late, where have you been? If he says, Mom, thank you for waiting up for me. I really appreciate knowing how much you love me, that you would wait up all these hours for me to get home. I have a good excuse, Mom, but I want you to know, first of all, that I love you supremely. What's that gonna do to a mom's? And you just say, oh, he's just manipulating me. Yeah, in a way he is. But you know, it's positive. And what a lesson for husbands and wives to learn when they're still kids, how to throw the warm fuzzy and kind of calm the situation before you try to solve the problem. All right? Just techniques on communication. It's amazing what you can learn. If you take some communication classes, maybe some anger management classes might be sometimes good to take, and you learn all those marvelous techniques that people have come up with. But let me tell you, listening to your children is vitally important. Kim came to me after school one day, and she said, Mom, can we talk? I said, sure, sweetheart, but I was cooking supper. And I was kind of on a rush pattern to get it done. Yes, sweetheart, just tell me what's going on in your life. And I stuck something in the, help me out, the blender. Yep. I stuck something in the blender, and she started to answer, and I went, zzz, brrr, you know, this blender went, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, honey, now, let me turn this off. And then it was like she just barely started to say something else, and I said, honey, just a minute, I need to run to the other room and get this thing. And I ran to the other, I got back, and then I was putting something in the microwave or taking something out, and finally Kim said to me, you know, Mom, it's really not that important. And to this day, I do not know what it was. Because by bedtime, when I had time to sit beside her, and maybe you can crawl in bed and hug her a little bit, it was over. Whatever was going on in her heart was not worth really talking about then. So turn off the microwave, turn off the blender, turn off your mind in terms of running someplace to get something. And when they say, Mom or Dad, can we talk? Just say, sure, and make that time. You'll find your family much more happier. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, I have a few more things to share with you. Number 5 is religion, and I'll keep going faster now, okay? Number 5 is religion. Families that have a faith, they go to a church, they have church activities, they've got good friends in the church, those families seem to be happier. Whether they're a Jewish family, whether they're a Christian family, whether they're a Muslim family, that church-related or worship-related atmosphere is good for the family. Families who have daily worship. Studies have shown that kids say no to alcohol, drugs, other deviant, we call deviant behavior like sex before marriage and drunk behavior and whatever else, you know. They're saying no much easier when they have that church-related worship kind of activity. Talk to your kids about God. I tell you all the stories. My husband could tell about the miracles that happened as they were escaping from first the German army and that was marching through Poland, and then they had to escape from communist Poland to get where their dad was into Germany. And the stories, it's like, wow, God did that for you? Yeah, one time, for example, Mom didn't know, with the 4 little children, where she should go. Should she go south? Because the Germans were trying to take the people south, or should she go north, where she knew there were some church friends? And finally she said, I do not know, kids, what to do. So we're going to do just like the Bible did. We're going to draw lots. And she wrote south, north. Actually, she wrote the places that they would be, Baltic Sea or Belgrade, and then she put one other place in there. And she said, okay, let's pray. And then, Jan, you pull out one strip of paper, and we'll see where it is, and that will be God's answer to us. They pulled out Belgrade, which was down below. The city isn't called that now because it's Polish, but the German had changed the name to Belgrade. And they went down. They got off the train. Everybody else went south up to the Baltic Sea, and that train was bombed, and everybody was killed. But they have story after story after story. When you have those kinds of stories, it's like, wow, God did that for you, Dad? But that will not help your kid. He's got to have his own stories. So every day, a miracle that somebody smiled at them that had never smiled at them before. Somebody helped them out that had never helped them out before, and that they had prayed that they would have friends at school, and somebody made a good friend. Those are miracles in our kids' lives that need to be recognized and talked about, because God is active in their lives, and that will give them that sense of faith. It's not just that Dad wasn't on the train to the Baltic Sea. Anyway, so spiritual things are important for the family. The 6th thing is a sense of play and a sense of humor. One dad told me, if I could do it again, I wouldn't be such a tough dad. I wouldn't be the father of the family. I would buy a joke book and read a joke to the kids every single day. And I know dads who have majored in knock-knock jokes, and every day coming home with a new knock-knock joke, and the kids try to come up with another knock-knock joke, you know. But they have fun together, and I'm not saying it's jokes that do it, but solving problems with humor can be great. I remember the day the kids were arguing about, they had started gymnastics, and they were trying to learn to stand on their hands. And so they would run to where the wall was in our large living room, and they would go down on their hands and flip up so their feet would be against the wall. And Kim did it, then Kari did it, then Kevin did it, then Kim did it, then Kevin wanted to do it. No, Kevin, it's not your turn, it's Kari's turn. No, it's my turn. And Daddy came in through the back door in the middle of this amazing argument about whose turn it was to do a handstand, I guess, against the wall. And Daddy said, kids, what are you trying to do? Whose turn is it? What are we? And they said, well, Kevin thinks it's his turn, but it's not his turn. And Dad said, our turn to do what? Well, to do a handstand against the wall. Oh, Daddy said, That's why I got home so fast. I knew it was my turn to do the handstand. And he kicked off his shoes and started running in his stocking feet toward the wall. And the kids saw that this was going to be a major disaster if Dad did a handstand against the wall. And so they started yelling, "Daddy, Daddy, don't do it. You're going to knock down the wall, Daddy." And by the time he did like this crazy, funny run across the room and then fell down on his knees. And I mean, it was dumb, but the kids were laughing and on top of him, and they were wrestling together. I don't think they ever went back to whose turn it was to do the handstand against the wall, but that sense of humor can break a lot of frustrating moments within the family if you can just make it funny and enjoy each other. So a sense of humor is important. Number 7 is shares responsibility and roles. It used to be, when we all lived on the farm, that Dad would be responsible for the workers on the farm and Mom would cook the dinner for all of them, and they had designated roles that they would perform, and everything would get done on the farm. Today's family is so different. If you choose to have roles and are not flexible, somebody's needs are not going to get met, because you know, things happen if you're both at work and you can't get home. And what if Dad's home and he absolutely says, "I will not do any cooking. That is not my job." What if the car breaks down and Dad's not around and Mom says, "The car is your father's job. He should have been doing care on this car so that it would have not broken." No, that's no way to have a family. In this day and age, you've got to have flexible roles. Each one of you know what you can do, and if you can do it better, whether it's filling out the income tax or whatever it is, fine, that can be delegated to one family. But if you've got such designated roles that you're not going to step over and help clean out the toilets when they need cleaning out, or help pick up the vomit that the kids vomited, you know, when it needs to be picked up, you're not going to have that strong, healthy family. Being flexible, meeting each other's needs, doing whatever needs to be done in the home is what makes families healthy and strong. I saw right before I left from my home in Kauai, I was watching television, and somebody asked one of the persons they were interviewing, "Do you ever help with your wife with the dishes?" And he looked very strange, and he said, "No." "What? You never help your wife with the dishes?" He said, "I dirty as much as she does, so we do them together, or I never think about doing it for my wife. If the dishes need to be done, we do it. Somebody does it." And it never dawned on him that he was doing it for his wife. It wasn't his wife's responsibility to do the dishes. It was their responsibility because they were in this thing together. So that makes a strong, healthy family. Common interests and goals are important. When I was just beginning to speak at camp meetings and women's ministries retreats across the country, I would find myself flying out on Friday afternoon and not coming back till Sunday, and Jan was taking care of the kids. He didn't mind at all. That was fine. But we began to realize that if we could get a motorhome so that we could go together to some of these events and have enough space to carry all of Mom's books along to sell at a book sale, that might be a plus for our family. So we began to go to the motorhome shows, and we found this Lazy Days motorhome that had bunk beds in the back and plenty of storage room for all Mom's books to be put in, and we fell in love with the Lazy Days. We came home, we counted our pennies and nickels and dimes. We began to make a chart of, how much money we were going to be saving toward that motorhome. And weeks went by, and we obviously were never going to be able to afford that motor home. One night, Jan came home, and he said, "You know what? We're not going to wait. God, I believe, wants us to have that motor home. And sometimes we have to step out in faith to see what he will supply. And I believe we need to order it before we leave. Mom has to leave in August for, a number of speaking appointments. And we could go with her if we had a motor home." And he said, "I'm going to call and going to order it, and we're going to pray and see what God does for us." He called. The person who answered the phone, of course it was after hours, the person that answered the phone at this home business, they made motorhomes, custom-made motorhomes, said, "Oh yeah, I'm quite sure you can have a motorhome by August 15th, but you'll need to talk to my dad on Monday morning." So my husband called back Monday morning, and the man said, "Of course you can't have one by August 15th. That's just 6 weeks away, and we couldn't get you a motorhome before the middle of October at the very earliest." Jan said, "Well, I believe that we need a motorhome by August 15. Have you ever had a cancellation?" "No, we have never had a cancellation." "Well," my husband said, "would you take our telephone number and name and call us when your first cancellation comes on a bunk bed model?" The man must have thought we were crazy. But he took the name and the telephone number, and we started praying. I mean, you should have heard our kids earnestly pleading with God for a motor home. You know, you would have thought somebody was dying of cancer and they were pleading for life. But no, they were pleading for a motor home. 3 days later, we got a call from this man. He said, "I can't believe it, but we've just had a cancellation on a bunk bed model, and it will be off the assembly line by August 15th. Folks, that motor home, with all the prayer that went into it, all the savings that went into it, all the planning that went into having a motor home for our family, having that goal, it was amazing. Nothing else brought us together like that motorhome. I don't know what it's going to be for you, but you need to have a goal, something you're looking forward to, something that you can pray for, because having common interests and goals are extremely important for a family. So again, plan those vacations, I don't know what you're going to be doing for Christmas. I don't know what you're going to be doing for the summer vacation that's coming up. But kids love it when you're planning together and talking together. In fact, you will probably agree, especially if you have children that you're taking on vacation, that it's almost more fun to plan than go. But anyway, those are important things. Number 9, service to others is the number 9 thing why families are good and happy. The story I like to tell is the story of Trevor Farrell. Trevor was a kid at 10 years of age, 11 years of age, who had dyslexia. He wasn't doing very well in school. But one winter night, he was watching television with his dad, and it was about the terrible snowstorm that had just hit their town of Philadelphia. And the news commentator said there will be people who will really suffer tonight because they're on the streets, they don't have any place to go, and it's going to be deathly cold tonight. Trevor said, "Dad, you mean there are people that are going to have to sleep on the street tonight, and they don't have any blankets and they don't have any pillows?" And yes, Dad said, that's exactly what's going to happen. "Daddy, we can't let that happen. I have an extra blanket on my bed. Please take me down to the streets of Philadelphia. Let's find a homeless man or a homeless woman, and let's give them a blanket off my bed." It would have been so easy for that dad to say, "Listen, Trevor, I know you mean well, But there's no way we can meet all the needs of the homeless in Philadelphia. One blanket isn't going to make that much difference. Instead, Dad said, Trevor, that's a wonderful idea. Run in, get the blanket off your bed that you want to give away, and I'll take you down to the streets of Philadelphia. The next night, Trevor said, Dad, I know there's somebody else that could use a pillow. I saw when we gave the blanket away how happy the man was. Please take me down again tonight and let me give away the extra pillow on my bed. And night after night, Trevor and his dad began going down to the streets of Philadelphia with a pillow, with a blanket, as Trevor came up with these things. Pretty soon, Mom got involved. She started making hot soup, and the kids at school began to get involved, and they went down earlier in the evening, in the late afternoon, and took soup to people that were on the streets. Pretty soon, Dad decided, within a year, to give up his electronic business and get a nonprofit organization developed, and they called it Trevor's Place. The city gave them a building, they renovated it, and now they had a place for homeless people. Then other cities got involved, and a number of cities in the States began to have Trevor's Places, where they had homes for the homeless. I know that probably sounds like a crazy idea, but families who are in service for others, whether it's mission service, whether it's going on a mission building trip, or whatever it is, that makes your family stronger and healthier. The number 10 reason why families are strong and healthy, I wish I could say they don't have any problems, but you know what? They do have problems. Families who are strong and healthy have problems, but they recognize the problems early and they find the help they need to solve the problems. You would if your child had a sore throat for week after week after week. You would go in and get an appointment and find out what's going on in that kid's life and get the help you need. Why is it when we have an emotional problem for one of the people in our families that we put it off and we put it off and we feel embarrassed that we might have to go in and find out the cause of that problem? Let me tell you, folks, the earlier you can sense that there may be something going on in one of your kids' lives or in your wife's or your husband's life, something is going on that just is kind of weighting you down, the earlier you can find an answer, the earlier you can get in to get an appointment with a professional, the chances are better that that problem can be solved without too much disability to the family, and you will find your family stronger and healthier. Okay, that's number 10. But that's not the end. I want to share a story with you. As we go back to that thing called commitment, because I like to end on commitment. Once upon a time, there was a very wise man. He was going through the country, and he had a bunch of followers who were following him wherever he went and wherever he spoke. And one young man came up beside him and said one day, I want to be just like you. Tell me, how can I be just like you? I want to be smart like you. I want to be able to figure out answers like you do. I just want to be like you. Well, said the guru, the teacher, just do what I do. Just say what I say, follow me. And the young man began to do that. After a couple of days with this young man following him every place he went, being right next to him, the teacher was right up against a river and started walking into the water the running water of the river. The young man thought that rather strange, but he walked right in beside the man. And they went deeper into the water, and the young man thought, I wonder what he's going to teach me now, or going to teach all of us now. And finally, when the teacher was there with the water swirling around his waist, the young man came right up beside him, so eager to learn. And the teacher grabbed him by the neck and the shoulders, pushed his head underwater, and held it there. The young man waited, wondering what lesson the teacher was going to teach from this experience. But the teacher didn't let go. In fact, he pushed his head deeper into the water. And the young man realized, you know what? I'm going to drown if I don't do something. And he got all of his strength together that he could possibly get together. And he pushed against the teacher and broke the teacher's hold, and he got his head above the water. And then at a safe distance, he looked back at the teacher, and he said, "Why did you do that?" And the teacher said, "Unless you want something as much as you want that life-saving breath of air, it will never